Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with my second attempt at my Sunday's Art of Truth project. I did start another project, I did another project. I just I did not have the wherewithal to do the voiceover and do all the editing. So this is the journal spread that I created, and I love it. I have no problems with it at all, but the video was just off the charts. It was just so hard to track. And it was definitely a serene process. I got very lost in the process, but that makes it very difficult to edit. So I opted to go ahead and just keep that in my journal and do a different project. So I've grabbed some images from the Winter Garden Kit and I printed them on tissue paper. And we're going to do 2 tags using recycled the recycled packaging and some vintage book pages. I needed a way to use up my really old book pages because they're not stable enough to create pockets. They just crack as soon as you try to fold them. So, and here I'm just jabbering. It was a live video. I mean, it was real time. I had my chair mat delivered today and it came all rolled up, and it's really, really hard plastic, and I was wrestling with it, trying to get it unrolled, and it just chewed up my hand. So it's been it was a rough morning. So, and here I wanted to show you really quickly this box that I keep underneath my desk. I have some shelving right in front of me, and this sits under it. This was my mother-in-law's silverware drawer holder, her silverware holder, and it's made out of solid wood. So I decided last night to go ahead and paint it. So I did a green base, and then I did some crackle, and then I came over with the pink, and it kind of matches the colors in my room as well. So I'm just going to trim these tags up just to make them a little bit smaller to fit in the journal. One is going to be wider than the other, but that's all right. I'm just measuring to make sure that it's not too tall. It's just fine. I think it was 7.5, and the journal will probably be 9 inches high. So just cutting off that top as well. I'm going to go ahead and cover these with some clear gesso, and that's just going to allow us to be able to put other mediums on top. I wasn't really sure exactly all the directions that I was going to go with this project, so I wanted to make sure that my surface was prepped well and that it would be able to receive any other additional mediums that I might choose to use. So just giving it a quick coat on both. And I did also get this green mat just a few days ago, got it on sale at Joann's, so I was really happy about that. I felt like I needed something different on my desk than just the white. So I print these out. You can print digital papers or any papers out on tissue paper, but you have to tape your tissue paper to a piece of copy paper. So I tape mine to a piece of 60-pound copy weight paper because it's really durable. It allows the printer to kind of be tricked into thinking that there's something thicker going on there, and I have less problems with the image getting stuck or the print getting stuck. So I just cut off those edges to release that tissue paper off the top because I do lose a little bit of the landscape by using the tape around the sides. So if you're interested in how I do that, if you'd like a demonstration, I'd be happy to show you. You can just leave a note in the comments. So I was debating on this really yellow vintage paper once I had selected it. So I kind of toyed around with getting something lighter, but this kind of really vintage yellowy color was perfect for this project. So it definitely gave both of the pieces a very vintage look. So here I'm going to go ahead and cut off the other edges on this one. And I apologize that some of this is off screen. I moved my laptop over a little bit, which means that it's not in the same place for me to look at the screen, as well as my camera arm was not pulled far enough forward. So I do apologize for that. I know that that can be frustrating. Just giving that a quick dry. And then I'm going to come in with my Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium and go ahead and adhere my tissue paper. You're going to see an oopsie here in a moment. because I went to go ahead and adhere that first piece of tissue paper before I added the vintage book page on top. So I caught myself. I was able to pull it back up, but you're going to see that here coming up shortly. And here is where I'm starting, just not even thinking about the fact that I needed to adhere that book paper. Normally, you don't get a chance to move tissue paper. It will just completely destroy it. I don't know why it worked for me, but I was actually able to pull it back up. So I'm in here just going ahead and inking the edges of both of these pieces. When it's got gesso on it, it really grabs that ink in a really beautiful way. I love that. So that's why it's looking so dark. So again, just getting all ready to put this paper on, and I didn't put my book paper on yet. This one actually, in retrospect, probably would have been better had it not had the book page behind it, because it got really dark, and because the colors in the print itself, the digital, are really mellow and kind of faint, it didn't end up being as vibrant of an image as I had hoped for with all of the kind of grunginess that I was adding to it. So, but I did pull the tissue paper back up, as you're going to see now. And again, just super lucky. That just does not happen. So I don't know if it was the tissue paper that I had, but it's just regular wrapping tissue paper, nothing special. I did also print some of the images on rice paper for my future projects for this journal. And you can actually feed that directly into the printer. It doesn't have to be taped to anything, so it's got a little bit more stability to it. I'm still feeling a little bit off and not very focused, so that's why we've got a voiceover here. Even though the project went a lot better, I still was just really not focused. And then I tend to ramble more, and I tend to get a little bit sidetracked and lost and things like that. So I hope you don't mind the full voiceover. It was easier than trying to pull the video apart in chunks and leave my voice where it was appropriate. So I went ahead and just opted for a full voiceover. Just making sure that that's nice and dry as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that off in a minute. The matte medium didn't adhere this paper very well to this packaging, probably because the packaging is a little bit thick, but it's easily resolved. And here's the part where I'm kind of recognizing that I'm off camera, but I just need to get used to the new setup. That's all. I moved my camera so it's more over my arm of my camera is more over my work surface, so that the grid is straight and everything just visibly looks better. But that means my laptop is sitting a little bit off to the right, and so I did kind of lose track of that, I think. And this was the first video I tried after I shifted things, so it'll get better going forward. There we go. We're going to go ahead and ink those edges again, because obviously they're covered up now underneath the book page from what we had done before. It's all good, you just have to laugh and just let go. especially, for me now, it's just a hard time, and creating is still my healing place. And so for me to not do a video or not create in this way would not be good for me. So I feel like I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and if it doesn't appeal to someone because of the voiceover or because I'm a little scattered or whatever, then you have the freedom to come and go as you please, and I totally understand that. So I would appreciate the feedback, though, if you want to share what you prefer. Do you like the voiceover? Do you like the full voiceover? Do you like a partial voiceover? Do you like the shorter videos? I am trying to be a little bit shorter, because I know people don't have the time to watch a 45 minute to an hour video. So just really working on that. So I'm going to try to do a combination of voiceover and real time, but got to get in the practice. So just setting that aside, that's going to need to get nice and dry. We will dry it with the heat tool as well. But before we start pulling off those edges or cutting or anything, we want to make sure it's nice and dry. I'm going to go ahead and adhere the second piece of tissue paper here. I really like the other image that you saw there, the one that's the circular that kind of looks like a star. I'm not sure what that flower is. I want to look it up and see, but it was just a little bit too circular. That the circular part of the image was way too wide for this tag or this substrate. So I decided to put it aside, and we'll use it for something else. When you're coming over, or when you're putting the tissue paper onto a surface, you want to have a lot of fluid matte medium. Fluid matte medium is the best, in my opinion, for this technique. And then also you want to come over the top of it with a thin layer as well. You do have to be very careful to not be really rough with your brush, because you can actually tear that tissue paper pretty easily. So, and here I'm just recognizing that the words that are a part of the digital are crooked on there, but in the end, it doesn't matter. And I think that we kind of lost the visibility of it anyway, just because of some other things that happened in the final steps. So it's all good. I really like how they turned out. They're pretty heavy, thicker than I had anticipated. So I'm not sure what I'm going to use them for, if I'll use them actually for a journal card or kind of a clip-in or something. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you'll be able to see that as we move through the Winter Garden Journal, as we continue to work on that. I'm waiting to actually start forming my signatures until I am a little bit more straight in my head, so just doing some ephemera right now. If you want to check out the inspiration for this project and for the sharing about my 2022 word for the year, which is serene, and I mentioned it in another video and was thinking about it further and wondering why I was feeling like serene, the word serene, was different to me than serenity. And I think for me, serene is more a choice and a place of being all the time, versus serenity being, I think it's can be an overused statement, and it's associated with the serenity prayer, which is a wonderful thing. But for me, I think thinking about the word serene is going to be more fitting for me in this case. So for my word for the year. So we're going to continue on, just tearing a bit more of that paper around the edges. I wanted to have it be kind of rough and inconsistent. And then I'm going to use my sand block to kind of sand those edges a little bit more. It's a little dull, and so it wasn't really doing what I had hoped it would do, but it was just fine in the end. I really love how they are looking right now, even though the one with the little bird is looking really muted, but I think it's just the nature of that particular digital print. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of stenciling on both of the pieces with this. This is Sean Petit's Mediterranean Mini Stencil. And I'm using my vintage archival ink because, again, at this point, I really wasn't sure how much further I was going to go, how much more I was going to add. So I want to make sure that my ink is not going to move with a wet media on top. So that's why I like the Vintage Photo Archival ink. And this is adding a little bit of interest, especially to that one that had so many open areas that were pretty kind of plain. And stenciling is a great way to add just a little bit of visual interest without adding a lot of bulk to a project. And I really hope to do more mixed media in this journal because people seem to really enjoy that, and mixed media is my happy place, so I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that. Stepping out of the box. So just rounding the corners there, and then I had picked up those stamps again that were off to my right. I decided not to use them and had picked out a couple of sentiments from my little jar instead. So, but you'll be able to see all those in the final photos at the end of the video. And just inking again just to catch anything that's got missed. It's so funny doing a voiceover because it's hard to remember what you were doing when your hands are talking or you're pausing for long periods of time. So that's why I don't like to do voiceovers. But it just takes practice. Once you start doing them, it gets easier and easier. So now I'm going to come in with that Payne's Gray. This is that paint that we used on the last journal, on the Winter Wonderland journal. It's this really rich blue gray. And I'm just coming with my finger and skipping around all the edges of both of these cards. And it adds a really nice element. I didn't add any further texture in terms of, I didn't do any stenciling or anything like that. I opted to keep this a little bit simpler, probably a better and safer choice for me right now. So it's just such a beautiful color. I'm going to show you the baby wipe here in a second because when you see it in its true color, it's just gorgeous. It's just got these really beautiful blue gray undertones that are just so rich and deep. That went really fast, but it's a gorgeous color. My apologies for the speed of that. So now we're going to do a little bit of embellishing. There I was just thinking about what I would use those for, whether I'd use them as a side pocket or, a journal card or tag. I'm not sure. We'll decide that as we move through the rest of the ephemera for the journal. And then just playing around with some other elements because I felt like the one especially there on the left needs a little bit of help. So I pulled some other pieces from the kit and I'm going to go ahead and build a little bit of a cluster. First, we're going to go ahead and back both of these cards with some coffee dyed paper. This is paper from my stash and it is 65-pound weight paper. I like to coffee dye on a thicker paper because when I use regular coffee dyed paper, a 20-pound, and I try to glue it on the back, it just looks terrible because it wrinkles and I just don't like it. This does add a little bit more bulk than is probably necessary or the best, but I prefer it, so that's what I use. Just giving that a good press so that all of the edges get adhered really well. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same with the other one. My fingers have been through it today, I tell you. You should have saw my desk after I finished the journal spread. It was such a disaster. It's been a rough day. I didn't sleep very well last night, and it snowed some more today, which just gives me anxiety. So I'm going to go ahead and finish adhering these. I think that my husband just walked in, so I'm going to give that a good press as well. We are almost to the end, so we're just going to stick it out here. Getting out my trimmer, I'm going to go ahead and trim these off, and then I'll round the edges with my scissors. Again, just trimming those off with my scissors, the corners. The layers are getting pretty thick by this point to try to use the corner rounder. This is another part where I'm like, viewing it back, I'm way off camera, guys, so sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and ink the back as well. It's a great journaling space. So we're going to do a little bit of embellishing. So I picked some bits from my stash from the kit and just grunging that one up a little bit so it's not so stark. I'm going to go ahead and just build a little bit of a cluster here. I was a little undecided all the way through this part, but in the end I'm satisfied with what I ended up choosing. Just cannot make up my mind on that lace. I just grabbed another piece that was a little bit wider. You know, when you're doing this, you just know what looks right and what doesn't look right, so that's kind of what I'm fussing with here. You know, I have to have my lace though. It just kind of finishes it off for me. Beautiful. Go ahead and put our little bird. This is the same image as the one up above. It's just the kit printed really small. So I thought that was a nice addition. I should have probably grunged that one up a little bit too. I realize now looking at the camera that I didn't. It's looking pretty bright, but it is what it is at this point. Just playing around with some ideas for other lace, and I did just decide to go with the sentiment, which says a new beginning. And then I did end up off camera. I added some lace, a lace topper to a kind of a pull, like for a tag pull on the other piece, and on this one I ended up putting a piece of lace all across the top and a little bit of a yellow ribbon on one of them, but you'll be able to see all that in the final photos. Thanks so much, guys. You can hop on over to the blog at b.rebornart.com to check out the inspiration. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.